Hey, pilot, welcome back to Ready for Pushback. I'm Nick Fialka, and today I am talking with the Director of Operations at Metro Aviation, Mr. John Vance, and we had a great discussion about flying fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters in an air ambulance situation all over the United States. If you are a pilot who is looking for a great career and stepping out of the airline world for a little bit and looking at other opportunities, this is a great one. Just the theme of today is just good people and being a good person, and how their company is overflowing with just people you want to be around. And it's a great opportunity to get some great flying in different parts of the United States. And so if you're looking for something a little not traditionally airlines, man, what a great conversation. So I want you to sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
All right, John Vance from Metro Aviation. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you?
Man, I'm so good. It's great to have you on the show. I know you guys have been a longtime supporter of RTAG, the Rotary to Air group, and I always see your people making all the big posts about all the good things happening at Metro. So, for the pilot that is new to your organization, what would you talk about what Metro does and how you guys do business?
For Metro Aviation, right? I too was a military. I made the transition out of the military a long time ago to, come out in the private sector. And when I departed the military, there was nothing available, like the guidance that you can get through RTAG and the resources that are available to you, and going and meeting the companies and interview preps and all the things. So it was pretty much figured out on your own and cold call, companies and see if you could get an interview. So, which actually took me on a path away from aviation when I first started, for that very reason, because I didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. So not having those resources, I actually went into construction management, and I got to fly with that job, but it wasn't an aviation job. So it's an incredible opportunity to have that available to pilots that are transitioning out and have a path to ask the questions and get the education and learn about different companies and opportunities. So as a whole, I just can't say enough for that organization and them being able to, guide pilots in the right direction and give them something that I didn't have, when I came out and many others didn't have transitioning.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you're the director of operations for Metro. Talk to me about the day-to-day about what Metro does across the country.
So we're an air ambulance provider, and we are a traditional operator only. And what that means is every location we have customers. So I don't have any community-based programs. So it's a different business model. Not speaking for or against anybody else's business model. It's just not one that we have here at Metro. And by community-based, I mean the helicopter is present in the community, and it's not customer-based, meaning it's not associated with a hospital or a service. They're just there. The 911 calls in, the request is made for air, and they send the helicopter out and provide transportation. For Metro, we have customers, 42 across the United States, and the customer, the medical people on board the aircraft are actually our customer. So we don't provide the medical staff or training or billing or anything that goes with that. We provide aviation services only. And so that's one difference about maybe Metro Aviation is we're an aviation company only. We don't employ any medical people. We don't provide any medical services. So a little bit unique in the industry, I think, to be solely, that model.
And so when a customer contracts with you, they get a helicopter and they get a handful of pilots to cover certain shifts. Is that typically how it goes?
So effectively, Metro Aviation will provide the aircraft to the customer, or the customer will own their own asset. In most cases, our customers own their own asset. They own their own helicopter or airplane, and we operate it for them. We take it through conformity and put it on our certificate for maintenance compliance, obviously, for the Part 135 regulations. And then we provide the pilots and the training and all that comes with that, and the day-to-day operation of the aircraft. And we train the customers to be crew members where crew members are required, like for night vision goggle operations, and do the medical crew member training that's required. And we provide all that to the customer as a service. But the medical care that's given is solely provided by the under the protocols and under the guidance of the customer.
Got it. So if I have my own hospital system and I've got my own helicopter, I come to you and you tell me like, hey, I can staff your helicopter with some pilots. How many different helicopters do you guys operate?
We operate the A-Star, the EC-130, the 407, EC-135, EC-145, EC-155. So that's all the models that we currently operate of helicopters. Right.
That's pretty a lot.
Right.
Are the pilots flying IFR, VFR?
They are.
IFR,
Most of our pilots, I won't say all, most of our twin engine aircraft are operated single pilot IFR. We do have a few dual pilot IFR programs within the company.
All right. And on goggles at night.
Correct. Day, night, NVG, and single pilot IFR. So you need to have all the skills.
Yeah. All right. Well, tell me about, and it's all over the U.S. Do you guys hire for a specific location? Like if I'm a pilot and I'm applying to you, and I come and I've got a few thousand hours in the 60 or the 53 or whatever it is, or 47 even, but I'm inbound to want to live in the Northeast. Like, do you guys move pilots around? Is this a place like, hey, we've got this opportunity with this one hospital system? Like, how do you place the pilot that's interested?
So it depends. The answer is yes, right? So if you were to come, let's say through the military and you do the SkillBridge program, right, where you're actually in the military and you're transitioning out, to come to work for a vendor like Metro Aviation, you'll be in the float pool. And so we will assign you to the location, hopefully the location that you want to be in the end when you transition out of the military, and we'll assign you there. The other option is you can apply directly for the location that you want to be. If there's a known location and there's an opening at that base, you apply, and we'll hire you directly into that position. And then the third option is you're not SkillBridge, but you're getting out of the military and you're not going to make the SkillBridge transition, but you're just looking for an opportunity. Then you can come to the float pool and we'll hire you. You can live wherever you want, and then we'll pay to transport you wherever your job is in the United States. As an example, if you wanted to live in the Northeast, you come to work in the float pool, you move your family there, you use your relocation services to get to the Northeast, to the area where you want to be. Hopefully close to a Metro Aviation base, and then you'll work in the float pool and we'll pay for your travel and transportation and training to get you where you need to be. And then when an opportunity comes close to home, you can hopefully transition into that base, and then you can be at home every day, which is really the largest advantage to any air ambulance operators, being home every day.
Yeah. Talk to me about the word float pool. That's a new term for me.
Mm-hmm. So the float pool is basically a pilot. So let's say, for example, you take vacation and somebody needs to staff your position. So send a pilot in to staff that position for the week that you take for your off hitch. Or if we have, a pilot retires from the company and we need to fill that position until we can hire and train and replace that pilot, we'll send someone from the float pool there to fill that position until we get a permanent pilot hired for that location. And it's a special breed of pilot. I mean, he's got to go wherever, obviously qualified in the aircraft is, under Part 135, right? So the aircraft would not be new to, but the location, the geography, the medical crew members, the team, the way they operate, it takes a special breed of person to be a float pilot. I tell people it's a hard transition for your first air ambulance job, no matter what vendor you work for, to go to the float pool, because of that vary, right? How they do business in one location versus another location, how the crews interact. And a children's team is a totally different environment than, say, a 407 that does primarily scene work. Like, the environment is different, the way things move is different, the considerations for all things are different. So the float guys are a unique breed of guys, and they really, really need to be at the apex of their skill set, because they're going to employ all of them. They may be in the Northeast dealing with winter conditions one day. And the next day they may be in the Southwest, dealing with high and hot, density altitudes and a whole different set of considerations. So it's a it's a challenging role.
Okay, so I've like as you were talking, like my mind like immediately went to the Southwest and like mountain flying and like things above 6,000 foot DA. Do you do specialized mountain flying training that
We do.
helps? Okay, talk to me. I'm interested. I'm so interested.
Right. So for the mountain training, there's two things that come into play there. First, contractually, some of our customers require a certain amount of mountain experience in order to operate within their area, right? And then we have instructors and check airmen that specialize in that. They work in those areas often and have done a lot of training in the high and hot environment. And so we'll put you through the training curriculum for that high and hot work and make sure that you're properly qualified and trained and ready for the task. And then, of course, one of the things that I love about Metro the entire time that I've been here is we don't force people into a situation, to move out the next day, for example. So maybe we start you on days only, and we give you a time period transition and get comfortable flying in the mountain and doing these things in the daytime. And then we'll slowly roll you into the night uh, time and let you start doing some night operations because most people are very experienced night pilots, but it's a lot to ask for a new environment, likely a different, model of aircraft, and then put you out there at night in the mountains doing, scene work or something like that. And then down the line, we'll transition you over to the IFR role, which is a whole different aspect of flying IFR in the mountains.
If it's low light, are they still going out at night on goggles?
Absolutely. So we actually require the NVGs be in the aircraft. Anytime there's the opportunity for you to be flying, at night, and they have to be mounted to the helmet anytime and available for use for you anytime NVG time. And we won't get into all the definitions of night, right? We could stay here the rest
Right.
of the podcast on that, right? So we won't get into that role, but basically, when it's appropriate for use of NVGs, they're required to be mounted to the helmet and available to you. Of course, it's a pilot decision. If you're in a highlight situation and you chose to flip them up, right? We don't get to that level of management. We want to make sure that you have them available to you and you can flip them down if you need.
Yeah, and I want to go back real quick for the pilot that's listening that doesn't fly helicopters. The reason I brought up the mountain flying and the high density altitude and the hot weather is because that high hot air is very thin, and the rotor blades have a hard time getting a bite of air to provide that lift, and it's a super dangerous if you're not really well skilled at flying in the mountains, and also probably in the civilian world, that's probably the most technical flying that you can do in a helicopter, I would say. Would you agree?
I would agree because the opportunity for error there, if you're approaching a landing zone and you have rising terrain around you, and the helicopter performance is limited, you have to be right. You may not be able to go around. That may not be an option to you to arrest your rate of descent and transition that to a climb. So you need to be well prepared and well trained. They're absolutely the case. And, and it affects the fixed wing world as well. We operate some PC-12s in some regions that are high and hot, out in Arizona and places like that. And, it increases runway distance and planning. And there's a lot of considerations as well on the fixed wing side. And our fixed wing guys are in that same boat. They need to be well versed in what they do. You're in mountainous terrain and remote areas in a lot of cases. Flying these aircraft and it's night. You can't reach ATC on the ground, so maybe you have to cancel in the air and then transition to being a VFR pilot and land at a remote airstrip, and then leave and go to the West Coast and some of the busiest airspace on the earth. Single pilot. So the EMS as a whole, no matter the role, helicopter or fixed wing, can be a demanding job.
Yeah, it absolutely can. And that's the like it's a wild. I've got a bunch of friends that do it, and it's such a cool industry because it just gives you the variability and it keeps you from getting bored, kind of doing the same thing in and out. It seems like something different like every single day.
Absolutely. And I think, for a guy like me, the reason I'm here 19 years later is because of that, right? When the flight request is made, you don't know what the request will be. You don't know where it'll take you, maybe out of state, maybe into busy airspace, maybe it's routine, maybe it's pick up at one facility and fly to another facility, but you never know. You never know what all the factors are going to be. You never know what the patient condition, is going to be in the considerations for the med crew. Can I fly at a high altitude? Is there considerations, for that patient? The temperature of the cabin of the aircraft. How does that need to be managed? Could it affect them? Um, and gear, equipment, like what loading are they going to take? Do they have specialized equipment that now changes my fuel load planning? And so that variability, I think, with every flight request that comes in is what keeps my interest, certainly. And I think a lot of people, I think that's why they come to the industry and they stay, is because you never know when the phone rings what challenges you're going to face.
That's true. So let's talk about that a little bit, about coming into the industry, because um, I would be willing to bet a lot of your people are former military, especially with the SkillBridge program. Like, what a um, poor DoD. Like, they totally, like,
Right.
Congress totally threw them for a loop there. I think it's the best thing that's ever happened. But man, on the other side of the coin, behind the green desk, like, they don't. They're like, oh no. But
Right.
so as you're coming out and you're leaving the military, is this a job where I can, if I'm going to be in the Northeast, like, I can settle down and plan on living in the Northeast, I can buy a house and raise a family there? Is this something where I need to be considered, like, hey, we might be moving every few years as kind of contracts come and go? What does that look like, and what do you tell a pilot that's questioning that?
Most of the time, our contracts are long term. So you can count on working for Metro Aviation, if you're in a geographic area close to one of our bases, because we don't have a lot of turnover from our customers. We just don't. Normally, we build good relationships and we provide good service, and we work hard. But it's a business, and we know that in businesses sometimes decisions can change. Right? They can decide they don't want to provide the air ambulance service anymore, or hospitals get bought out. Those things can happen. But realistically, with air ambulance work, once you relocate to an area, if there's air ambulance currently there, it probably never leaves.
Mm,
Maybe it changes vendors, it changes names, but it probably
mhm.
never leaves, right? So if you'd have asked me 20 years ago, if you want to be a helicopter pilot, for example, and you want consistency, you want to know where you're going to work, you want to do it, I probably would have said oil and gas, not that oil and gas would change the way that it has, right?
Yeah.
With the layoffs and all that's going on in that industry, and the political environment surrounding that industry. And I would have been horribly wrong, right? In hindsight, air ambulance has been a much more stable, right? Because typically when the services are provided in the area, they're needed, and they don't go away, So, if you're transitioning out of the military and you find a location, and let's say you're going to go to Vermont, or somewhere in the Northeast up there, and you find where you could be centrally located, and there's two or three options for Metro Aviation bases that you could live within an hour and you could go to work. So you geographically position yourself in that way, and then you wait on an opportunity to come available at that base. If there's not currently one available to you, you go to work in the float pool, like we discussed. You travel around the country, and then when one comes open close to home, you apply for it, and hopefully you'll get to be home from that point forward for the remainder of your career.
That's so cool, especially Vermont. I love that. I love that state. Um,
Right.
tell me what a schedule looks like a daily or weekly schedule.
So a schedule for an air ambulance pilot here at Metro Aviation is we employ 7 and 7 only. Some vendors will provide a 14 and 14 schedule. We don't, just from a fatigue standpoint. We feel like the 7 and 7 is a better fit. And so a typical schedule for a pilot here at Metro Aviation would be, we do a split schedule. So you would work, for example, the schedule start on Tuesday or Friday here at Metro, and we do that for training planning purposes, right? So we know when you're going to start. So we don't have a very, like, one guy starts on Monday and the next guy starts on Wednesday and things like that. So everybody either starts on Tuesday or Friday. And then our training department, you can forecast your schedule for a year in advance. If you know every Tuesday I come to work, I work 7 days, and the next Tuesday I'm off for 7 days. Well, now in the training department, we can schedule your recurrent training, your annual training, a year in advance. So you know how to plan, right? So it's good for everybody. But a typical schedule would be, as an example, you come to work on Tuesday, you might work or you would work days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then you would be off 24 hours, come to work Friday night. Then you would work nights, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and then you're off for 7 days. The flip side of that schedule is Friday, right? So when you transition Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday days, when you go to nights on Friday, there's a day pilot that's got to fill that spot. So he comes to work starting his schedule on Friday, and he'll work days opposite you on nights, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then transition to nights Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then he's off 7 days. So that's the normal schedule for a pilot here at Metro Aviation.
Is there? So I imagine it's single pilot. So I had a friend. I had a friend that's a nurse, a helicopter like nurse, right? And he spends his time in this. It's almost like a ready room or like a place like a firefighter's lounge where they have TVs and place to sleep and a little kitchen and things like that and a gym. Uh, with one pilot, it looks like the footprint's much smaller. What does it look like? What's your area? What's it called? What's it look like?
So typically it's just pilot quarters, and it's exactly the same as you described. There's no difference. There's sleeping quarters for the pilot. He'll normally have an office where he can go and do, recurrent training on the computer or evaluate the weather, flight planning and all those things. But we normally like to have a private space for that to be done, so the pilot has no pressure or outside influence, so they can go and make their evaluation on whether to accept the flight request or not, without having somebody stand over their shoulder and be involved in that decision making process. Because we want the pilots, that's what we pay pilots for, is judgment. Right at the end of the day, that's what you're there for, is use good judgment, and we want them to be able to do that without any outside influence or pressure. So they'll normally have crew quarters where they can rest. Our recommendation is maintain your schedule. We know that you can't turn your schedule if you're on nights. Your world doesn't stop, right? Your family doesn't, turn themselves to nights, and kids go to school at night and all those, right? So life still happens. So our recommendation is, if you come to work on a night shift and you normally go to bed at 10 o'clock, go to bed at 10 o'clock, get some rest, keep your routine. It's not realistic when you come to work on a shift like that you stay awake for 24 hours inevitably, right? Because your family's still going to be doing family stuff during the daytime. So but basically, as you described, just like a fire department, there's normally a common area, medical crew. You'll interact, you may cook, watch TV, do whatever you do during the day. And in the night hours, everybody normally goes separate ways to their quarters and tries to get some rest.
What NVGs are you using?
So we're using nines, Anvis nines, right?
Nines.
The
Hmm.
latest technology. And I would say we're probably 25% white phosphorus, and then the rest are still green. But as the greens break or need repair, they can't be replaced as greens. I think white phosphorus, you can probably special order greens if you want them, but white phosphorus is the trend for sure.
I certainly have this emotional attachment to the greens after 2 decades of flying on them. So anyway, I digress.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel you, right? I have about 600 hours of instruction given under NVG since I've been with Metro Aviation, and they were all green.
Yeah.
So I put on the whites, and I know they should be better, and I know I should like them more, and I know all the things, but at the end of the day, I want to.
Yeah. You only know what you start with. That's for sure.
Right,
That's so
right.
good. Do you feel like Metro um, is a job for a pilot that has a family or a single, or like is there some kind of mindset that you need to have coming into like a 7 on 7 off lifestyle? Like what do you think?
So I think you can get either, right? Like I mentioned, for the float pool, for the single guy that wants to travel, doesn't know where he wants to put down roots, or girl, right? Like whoever comes on board, that's not sure where they want to plant their roots, and they want to see the sights and work different places and be with different programs and learn different things and new skill sets. I think coming into the float pool is an excellent opportunity to do all those things, especially when Metro will pay you, for your transportation. Your time starts when you leave your home. Uh, so traveling at somebody else's expense and getting to go and see the country and fly different aircraft and different things is an incredible way. But for the family person that wants to be home, working at a base that's 20 minutes from your home, um, 12 hours basically of every shift that you work, you're off. So you get to be home with your family, and then you get 7 days off in a row. We have a lot of people, that have families that their wife may be a nurse, and they will alter their schedule to work on the days when you're scheduled to be off. So you can be, Mr. Mom, right? Like I loved going and getting my kids from daycare and doing all those things on my 7 days off. Like it was awesome to spend time with them. So I think it can be either. It can be whatever you make it. It's basically like every job. It can be what you make it. But the real advantage is when you get to that sweet spot in life where you want to be home, you have someone that you want to spend time with, and or outside hobbies or things that you want to do. You can take advantage of those days off, and then you're 20 minutes from work every day. There's no being away from home. If something happens, a kid has a, bike accident and breaks their arm and you need to leave work, you're 20 minutes, right? You can say, hey, I'm going to put the base down. I need to go be with my family right now, because family's always first. And this gives you that opportunity, especially when you're working with a bunch of first responders, because they certainly understand when you have a traumatic event, your mind's not in the game. They don't want to fly with you anyway. So go take care of your child. So I think for me, it's probably the best opportunity going to be a helicopter pilot.
Yeah. First responders are some fun people. That is for sure. And yeah, good people. You've got the helicopter world, but we talked a little bit about the PC-12. Tell me about that footprint. You have it's a much smaller pool of aircraft, right, than the helicopter world. Tell me about your fixed wing world.
So first, we have a variety, right? So we have the PC-12, and it is mainly located in the western United States and rural locations, where it would be, time, weather. You can't fly due to icing in a helicopter, right? We don't in the
Mm-hmm.
civilian world. That's not a true blanket statement, but we're not in an S-92, right? So we don't have icing capability, right? So the fixed wing gives us the opportunity to do some short field stuff and operate in winter conditions. Mainly in the western United States. So it's a really, really good platform for that. But the schedule is the same. It's a 7-7 schedule. Rotates at nights, just like the helicopter guys do. So really, really good opportunity on the fixed wing side, because you don't have the varied schedule or like charter. I did, I'll say this quietly, right? I was a fixed wing pilot for 10 years when I first separated from the military. And so I worked for a charter company. And it was good work, great people, like enjoyed it. You get paid when you fly. And so the opportunity comes to fly, you go fly or you don't get paid. So that's good and bad. Uh, you end up spending a lot of time away from your family because you don't know when the next call will come, so you better take this one. That kind of attitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with air ambulance, you get the ability to fly, use all of your skills as we discussed before. Feel like you're at the apex of your skill set, but you also get the benefits of being home every day and the 7-7 schedule. But with that, we operate citations J1, and it takes doctors to patients, which is kind of a unique model, and that's getting more common, right? So you take a highly specialized doctor and you fly them out to patients. As an example, when I was flying charter, I flew doctors that would actually do surgery on a child while they're in the womb, right? Well, that's not care that you get in small town rural America, right? But these doctors would travel out and have clinics, and they would see these patients where they are. And then when it came time for procedures or high risk pregnancies, then they could move in to the city and get the care that they needed. So that's a phenomenon that's kind of going on in the U.S. right now. That's getting more and more popular, where these highly specialized doctors are going out to the patients. So we operate a couple of aircraft that do that. They leave every morning. They take these doctors out. They drop them at various locations, and then they pick them up in the evening. And they bring them back home. So it's not an air ambulance, but it's taking the doctor to the patient. We operate an Encore Plus and a Lear 75 that does patients and children, as well as some adults, and also organ transplant. So that's also a big industry right now. So kind of a wide, a range of things that we do in the fixed wing world here at Metro.
Do you do anything in like Alaska with float planes or helicopters on floats?
So we don't do anything in Alaska currently.
Let's go. That would be like
Yeah,
this the
I know,
next
right?
frontier.
I know. Like if we ever get that opportunity, believe me, I'm all in. I want to go do a site visit at least, right?
Yeah, for sure. That'd be wild. I would love that.
Yeah.
All right. So right now we're in a really interesting time in this industry, right? We're coming off of the chaos of the airline industry in 2022. And so I can imagine in my mind, if I was in your shoes, I would have seen a relatively traditional business model, like being able to backfill my pilots and kind of people coming in and out of the military and some civilian people that may have gotten a ton of hours somehow on the civilian side, but probably mostly military, just because of the nature of a helicopter. But then, like just after COVID, everybody wanted to go to the airlines, and here we are. We're not like we're not down at the bottom of that roller coaster hump, but we are certainly at this other plateau now where things have slowed down in the airline industry, in the fixed wing world. And I'm wondering, like, did you guys experience a drought or a surplus of helicopter pilots in the, in that post COVID window? And then is it business as far as recruiting, I guess, getting back to normal? What was your experience?
So absolutely, I think everybody in the aviation industry was impacted in some way. Um, the allure to the airlines was significant, right? Because obviously it can be a good opportunity. There's no doubt about that. It's the uncertainty, like you said, right now, right? We're kind of at the peak, and you're seeing some layoffs are starting to occur, and we're starting to go in the valley now from that side of things. So it's just, and that's the normal course of business, right? The airlines, if you look back over the history of the airlines, they've done that. Historically, there's been a peak, and then there's a lull, and then there's a peak, and then there's a lull. And if you can get in the industry at the right time, you can have a long, fruitful career in the airline industry, obviously. And that's an allure to a lot of guys. I completely understand that. And we did have some pilots that transitioned actually away from Metro and went to the airline. They had previous experience, and the airlines were offering, the opportunity, right, to come and get your ratings. If you already have, high total time, then we'll get you qualified in the fixed wing side, and we'll put you to work. And it was a good opportunity for some. Some have circled back to Metro, but I think it affected broader. The newcomers to the industry, like you talked about, right? The guys straight out of the military, the young guys that are just completing flight school and deciding which route do I want to take, fixed wing or do I want to take rotor wing? Would I like to make that transition? I think a lot of the guys that started down that path, they're going to a college somewhere that offers an aviation program, and they're trying to decide, am I going to do fixed wing or rotor wing? Well, the allure of the airlines was heavy. They did a really good job of the messaging, and I think it steered a lot of those pilots into the fixed wing world. Where I would say historically, what 10% maybe are helicopter guys and 90% are fixed wing. They probably steered that to 95% fixed wing. So I think we're not gonna see the end of that effect for probably another 4 or 5 years, because those guys are starting to mature now and get their degrees and come out into the flying world and go to work, on those initial jobs, whether it be for the regional airlines, whether it be for NetJets or an operator like that, that's doing corporate transportation, because they too they had to up their game, right? Because the airlines are drawing, so now they need pilots, and the helicopter world needs pilots. So it certainly impacted us, and I don't mind telling you, like today, for example, I need about 35 pilots. My full staffing is 600. Our float pool, I have about 50 guys in the float pool, right? So in theory, we employ more pilots than we have job opportunities. But the reality is you always have 10, 12, 15 that have medical issues, that are out, or some reason that they're on long-term leave, that we're having to fill, vacations, training, all of the things, right? So there's always a need for that, surplus of pilots, basically, just to fill the day-to-day jobs, because life happens. A guy goes out riding his bike, breaks his ankle, and he's out for 8 weeks. Well, somebody's got to fill that spot at the base, so that's where the role of the float pilot comes in. So, we're in pretty good shape staffing wise, I think, but it's been a challenge. There's no question.
Yeah. I look at that as kind of like a hydraulic accumulator that just has that extra bit of fluid in there to help reduce like the big muscle movements of the hydraulic system. It just dampens everything to have that backfill of pilots like ready to go. All right. So we talked about the world of hiring pilots. Tell me about give me some tips if you want to be like crush the interview at Metro and get hired. What does it take? What does it look for?
Well, I'll answer this question the way I asked that question many, many years ago. So probably 15 years ago, I became a program lead pilot. And at the time, Metro Aviation was a much smaller company. We were in a Quonset hut at the airport, right? And we got a new classroom when I first came for BI. The new classroom was a double wide trailer, right?
Oh
It
yeah.
didn't have any electricity hooked up to it yet. There was no bathrooms or anything, and they run an extension cord in the window so they could run the slide projector, right? But awesome. Like immediately when I met the people at Metro Aviation, I was, these are my people. They're like me. right? They're just normal people. So about 3 years into my career here at Metro Aviation, I asked our chief pilot, because at the time we did interviews and hiring in the field. And so we did the interview, we talked to the pilot, we took them for a flight in the aircraft, and then we would make the recommendation to the chief pilot and the DO. And then they would discuss the money and the benefits and give them that side, the HR side of the company. But we in the field really made the decision of whether or not this pilot was going to come on. So I asked the chief pilot, I said, look, in my construction management job, right, I've hired and fired hundreds and hundreds of people, right, traveling around the company and manning up for, these shutdowns and things like that, but not a lot of pilots. And so tell me what I should look for. And he kind of leaned up at his desk and he said, you hire good people, right? If they're applying here, they meet the minimum standard. Now you're looking for good people, right? And so I've always taken that, right? From that day forward up to now being the director of operations here, we're looking for good people, right? So when you come and you apply here, if you want to crush it, present yourself in a way that you want to be presented, meaning if you show up in shirts and flip-flops, the interview's probably not going to go well, right? Because if that's the standard that you set for yourself, I don't know how you would represent yourself to our customer in the field, right? Mm-hmm. And that's part of it. When you walk in the door, that first impression you make and the effort that you put into that tells me the type of effort that you'll put into our customer. And at the end of the day, that's what we're looking for, right? If you meet the standards to come to work, you can fly. That's going to be your challenge in most cases, right? The ability to fly the helicopter safely from point A to point B. You can do that. You have that skill set. Can you get along with the people? Can you provide good customer service? And most importantly, do you possess good judgment? And I'll give you a small glimpse of that, right? So when you come in to do your flight in the simulator with us, chances are you've never seen the EC-135 or the EC-145 in most cases. Mm-hmm. That interview flight is about the ability for an instructor to take 10 or 15 minutes with you and give you all of the information you need to be successful, put you in the simulator, see you execute that, be willing to learn, be receptive to the information, and are you teachable? Not are you perfect, but can I teach you? And at the end of the day, when they walk out of that simulator, no matter how it went, if they said, hey, use the trim switch and don't use the force trim release, right? Because you'll over control the aircraft. Did you make that adaptation? I can train you. It doesn't matter what the maneuver looked like. What matters is, did I make the adaptation and are you trainable? Because if you come with the attitude of already know everything, I'm not going to be effective when I try to teach you and get you to adopt the way Metro Aviation does business. So that's a quick peek on the inside of what we're really looking for. Good people, and are you humble enough to be trained?
Yeah, in a sweet Class D simulator.
Right.
Listen, as you're talking about it, I'm like moving the trim switch in my head.
I'm like
thinking about I haven't been in a helicopter in a long time, and boy, do I miss it.
Well, come see us. Come see us. Yeah. We'll get you some time in there.
Listen, that'd be so cool. One of the things when we started talking about being on the show, I sent a link to my calendar and it's got some pre-fill questions for the guest to fill out, just to kind of give me an understanding of where your mindset is and where I can find some good questions to ask so people want to listen to the show. And I thought this was like one of the things you said was so interesting. It said, one of the issues that you've had is people not reading the emails that come forth to describe the interview and the interview process and where to go, and that people would show up in the wrong location. What is this location? What's this mystery location that you have to open the packet to know? You don't have to give it away, I guess, but this is so interesting that people would go to the wrong spot and wonder like where you guys are for the interview.
No, so it's simple, really, and I don't mind. There's no secret to this, right? Because if they're not engaged enough to find out which door to come in, they're probably not going to be engaged enough to listen to the podcast to get the secret answer here, right? So, and believe me, I'm much more of I'm not trying to catch you, even as a check airman, right? I've been a check airman for 18 of the 19 years here at Metro. Like, I want to train you, and the checking is an evaluation of the training that we provided to you, right? Sure. Like it's not a gotcha, right? I'm not that
Mhm.
kind of guy. That's not productive for anyone, right? I want to train you to the standard and then show you repeat the standard to me. That's
Mm.
what evaluation is about in my mind. So the building has helicopter flight training center on it in I don't know, 12 by 3 letters, over the top of the building with double doors. There's signpost in the parking lot directly in front of the doors, that says, "Welcome to Metro, you've got this," for applicant parking only.
Oh,
And
wow.
nobody parks in those spots. It's some of the only open parking places in the building, right? And it says that clearly, and it shows you a picture of the sign, right, where to park, and this is the door that you go in, and all the things. And invariably, about 4 times a year, we'll have somebody show up at Miss Johnette, which is the entrance to the main Metro headquarters, at Mike Stanberry's office, and say they're in the lobby here and they're wanting to know where to go for the interview. And I'm like, well,
Uh,
maybe if you would have parked in the right parking place, right? So it just tells me that the level of effort that you put into preparation for this was not even the basic, just read the email and find out where to park. Because we reserve parking places for you and then we tell you the door to come in. So
I love that you have your own parking space for the applicant. That is awesome. That is so good. Man, what a fun day.
it is, and we put a lot of effort. We spend a lot of time locked up in the conference room with, the leadership and the recruiting teams. And so with Metro, we have dedicated recruiters. They will answer any question. I hear Kenny Morrow, our COO, he says all the time when he's talking to people, I can't imagine there's a question that I wouldn't answer unless it's proprietary to one of our customers, right? So we kind of started with that. Like, let's be transparent. It's got to be a fit for both of us to be a long-term relationship, right? So it starts with that recruiting and getting your questions answered and making sure you get your travel arrangements taken care of, and our travel agent takes care of you and make sure that you get here and you have what you need. And when you show up at the hotel, there's a welcome bag there for you with a cookie and a little note that says, "Hey, you've got this," right? The key to success is a good night's rest. With the Metro Aviation cookies on your pillow, we send somebody to the hotel and they put that in for every one of our applicants so they know that they're welcome. Um, you bring them here in the building, right? Get them here, welcome them here. If I'm in the building, you will see me that day. If John McClure, our chief pilot, is in the building, you will see him that day. If Todd Stanberry, our vice president and co-owner of Metro Aviation, is in the building, you will see him that day
Mm.
when you come to interview. And each of us will spend 10 or 15 minutes with you. We'll tell you a little bit about Metro, how we got here, and answer any question that you want. And again, I can't imagine there's a question I wouldn't answer unless it's proprietary to our customer. I don't think anybody else is doing that. But again, it's about people. And we put our effort, when we say that, we put the effort into it to prove that it's about people. I don't know of any other company that you interview with, and the co-owner and president will come and sit at a table with you for 20 minutes and give you his undivided attention.
Man, it's it goes back to good people, right?
It's about the people, and
Yeah,
that is not lost on us.
I love that. Man, John, thank you so much for spending your time with the pilot that's listening, that really wants to know about Metro, and is probably really conflicted about how best to enter the world of aviation, especially the military folks that are trying to figure out. I would say a couple things. Like, if somebody is interested in doing SkillBridge with you, and where do they reach out?
So you can go right to our website, and we'll point you to Break Turn, which is the company we use to help with that transition. It's right on our website. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Break Turn's one of my favorite organizations. Two of my best buddies own that company. So hats off to my Break Turn brothers. And also, if you are a pilot and traditionally looking for an opportunity, where should they go to find out about other like job hiring opportunities?
Well, of course, metroaviation.com is the best place to go for any pilot job opportunity, right? But one thing I want to add to your statement before. So, and this is, I don't know if it's unique to Metro or not, but I know it's something that we put a lot of time and effort to. Spent probably an hour on the phone with a pilot that doesn't work for me, answering questions, last week. You can call me and anybody else in the organization, and we will help guide you, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be to Metro Aviation. Like, I have pilots that will say, "Hey, I have a friend of mine and their son is graduating from school and they want to know what to do." Call us. We will help you, get on the right path. right? And start your career in aviation. We want to see people succeed. Hopefully one day, because of that mentorship and guidance that we give you, that leads you back to Metro. But that's okay. Like that's not an end all be all. We're not looking to sign a contract. And I tell people when they come here for interview, we're not selling cars here, right? We're going to give you all the information you can, make you as informed as you can, so you can make the best decision you can. And I can't tell you how many people I've had call me and say, hey, I've got 2,000 hours of flight instruction. I meet all of the minimum requirements. I want to come to air ambulance. I'm like, you should probably go and experience in another industry, because when you come to Metro, you need to have all the skills, not the time. The time is not as important as the quality of that time, right? So we will help steer you and give you the best opportunity for success, along with the aircraft that we qualify you in. Where we put you to start working, all of those different things. Maybe the best fit for you is an EC-130. Maybe the best fit for you is an EC-155 single pilot IFR, depending on your skills, where you came from. But we'll help you with all of that. So don't be afraid to reach out to us, anybody on our team, any of our recruiting staff. And if we don't have the right fit for you, we'll still provide the mentorship and the guidance to help you get on the right path.
John, you're amazing. I really appreciate you. The pilot appreciates you. Thank you for being part of our show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, pilots, that's a wrap on this episode, and I know what you're thinking. You need to make yourself a little bit better. So how do you make yourself a little bit better? You tighten up your resume. So here's what I want you to do. Go over to my website, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and you can download my free resume template. It is tight, organized, and it's the perfect pilot resume. It's just something I like to do for the pilot group, and it is free to you. So go over there, spitfireelite.com/podcast, and download your free resume template. While you're over there, look at all the services that we offer. Lots of great interview prep, lots of great application review. Everything you need to be a professional pilot is right there. spitfireelite.com/podcast. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next episode.